Hello and good evening, everyone. My name is Nicole Magruder, and I am the Executive Director of Community Hero Action Group. Our mission is closing the gaps in health and wealth disparities within the Black community. We are here with the 2022 Pennsylvania Black Health Matters Conference, Disrupt and Build Up. We're here with our first moderated forum of the evening, and it is entitled The Myths and Majesty of Black Maternal Health. We do have a fabulous moderator who is going to share more about what is in store for you. But before we do that, I want to explain who we have joining us tonight. We have a special guest. We have a guest artist, Emma Wimberly from the Ink Factory. What she'll be doing is creating live visual notes that will be synthesizing our words and images and text to visually represent key concepts and themes of tonight's conversation. We know that virtual notes boost understanding, learning, and information retention. We plan on using all of the graphics that are being completed this evening and earlier from today to create journals. And those who attend this forum, and of course, I guess others, can have the opportunity to purchase these journals after the conference. So we be sure to check back in with us. We'll also be sending out a survey at the end. So when you complete the survey, just check off that you're very interested in purchasing one of the journals, and we'll be sure to send you out some information on that. All right. So without further ado, I will hand it over to you, Lexi.
Hello out there, everybody in Streamland. Thank you so much, Nicole. Thank you so much for this amazing opportunity. I am here with my brother, my fellow Coco dad. We're going to get into some introductions, but how did y'all like the music at the top of You Got a Chance to Hear? We'll play a little more for you, but as long as I'm DJing, MJB is going to be on the ones and the twos.
Yeah, I'm ready to kick it.
How you doing today, Brother Joel?
Yeah, I'm doing fantastic. Like, I'm really hyped about this. I love talking about health. I love talking about people. I love talking about our families. I'm excited.
Awesome. Me too. I'm so grateful for this time. There's been a lot going on this month. April is Minority Health Month, and I think it's awesome that we get a chance to lift up this conversation. It affects our community in disproportionate rates as it relates to maternal health and paternal health. And that's what we're here before you today, just to kind of share some feedback on. So I'm going to go ahead and get my screen share going. And our opportunities that we're going to lift up when we talk about the myths and the majesty in Black maternal health, it's just being specific around what that looks like. And so just making sure that we understand how important this conversation is for both spaces. And I know Joel's going to get into a little more detail about how paternal health really informs this whole conversation too, and one of the tools that we can use to leverage that. Can you see my screen okay, Joel?
I haven't seen it come up yet. I see it right now.
Perfect. All right. And we're going to highlight top things that you want to keep in mind. We have 5 in particular that you want to kind of keep at the forefront when we're talking about maternal health, but there's 5 in particular that we're going to highlight. So our agenda for today includes some intros so you can get to know Joel and I a little more. Again, 5 elements to Black maternal health and how paternal health informs all of it. We have some tips and tools, and then we're going to do a little share out and close. Please be active in the chat. Joel and I are very engaging facilitators, so while we may not be able to talk amongst each other, we know how to leverage our fingers and our audio as much as we can as it relates to the chat. So please feel free to do that. Just because I like to be intentional about all the many abilities that people have. Again, and I'll use this as a way to transition into our intro. I am Alexia Duboya. I am a brown-skinned girl. Left and right. I am a brown-skinned girl. I have my hair locked and bun. I have on a black t-shirt that says Dula on it. And I'm wearing my favorite Ruby Woo red lip. So I am the president of CocoLife.Black, one of the founders of it too. I am also a certified postpartum doula. I like to be specific about that because the postpartum area is a near and dear to my heart because of my own experiences with postpartum depression and anxiety, with just trouble navigating, connecting with my child years ago and 2 occasions, pregnant before. And the doula component of it came along just based on an opportunity that really came from my church at Enon. If you're familiar with the Philadelphia area, Enon Tabernacle Baptist Church is a very large church down here, but the work that we do in the community allowed this opportunity to come. So I was super excited about it. So CocoLife.Black is an online resource platform geared towards serving Black and brown moms in 3 key stages of pregnancy, postpartum, and compassion for the loss of a child and a loved one. But as a part of that, we also use the language of cultivating a community. That is where Brother Joel comes in heavily with the work that he does, because we believe that the Coco dads, the kids, and the whole community is what supports mom. And so we want to make sure that she is good. Our goal is to reduce those race-related disparities by sharing resources, providing access, and again, just celebrating all the spaces that she shows up as mom. With that, I'm going to hand it over to Joel to do a little intro of his own.
I'll try to keep it short. My name is Joel Austin. I am president and CEO of Daddy University Incorporated. We are the longest running male parenting education company in the United States. And as you can see, I am also brown skinned. We run a Father's Club in Philadelphia. We run a Daddy and Daughter Dance in Philadelphia. We run conferences in Philadelphia, all focused on providing fathers with as much information as needed to bring success to children, bring success to youth, and bring success to infants. We also currently run the Delta Alpha Delta fraternity, our dad fraternity, and one of our prized possessions is our Doulos for Dads program. We have currently, since last year, trained 8 Black male doulas, or doulo for the male pronoun, to be postpartum doulas in the city of Philadelphia. I am a postpartum doula as well, and it is an exciting work to try to bring families together. It's exciting to learn the maternity health world and also bridge the gap to the paternal health world. We're going to get really into the balance of it, the equalness of it, and how we can try to resolve some things in our culture.
I love that. When we think about resolution, every time you share your intro and about the work that you do, Joel, it gets me excited because I'm so thankful that we are being intentional about sharing and reflecting what the whole family looks like. There's many different examples, and we know representation of families come in all shapes and forms. When we talk about the Black community, it's really important that we show these 2 crucial figures. Just like how we stand before you today, we show the mother and we show the father. We show that unity because that is what our communities are built on, is that unity. So that's a little of the reason why I think the spaces that Joel decided we want to show up in together as that united front, because then what they say, representation matters, you get a chance to see it happening over and over. So with that, elements to Black maternal and paternal health.
Let's get it started.
Okay, I won't think. Listen, wealth is education, right? We know that we are in a learning environment, and we always want to make sure that we create that space. So the first element that we are going to hit on is around the history of maternal and paternal health. And so, Joel, I'm going to play 2 truths and a lie with you. And I know you're probably going to know what it is, but just humor me for the sake of our audience too. So when I started thinking about, and let me just say this too, all of these topics, you'll be able to hear it from the mom side and the dad side, the woman side and the man side. So each of these topics, that is what we are stepping in to do, is give you the full perspective, because sometimes we don't always get the full perspective. We get pieces of it, right?
Yes.
So when we talk about history on the maternal health side, the first thing that came to mind for me was the effects of slavery. Okay, so here's where we're going to play two truths and a lie, Joel. All right, so I'm going to give you 3 statements, and I want you to tell me which one is the lie. Okay? First one is banning the transatlantic slave trade reduced the attention of fertility among Black women. That's number 1. Surgeons were hired to protect enslaved people during that time. Infant mortality rates are higher now than during slavery. Which one is the lie? I'm going to say them again just because I think people might be joining. I know, I'm going to say them again because I think some people might be joining too.
Oh, okay.
Banning the transatlantic slave trade reduced the attention on fertility among Black women. That's 1. Surgeons were hired to protect enslaved people. Number 2. Infant mortality rates are higher now than during the times of slavery. Which one is the lie?
I'm going to believe that. I'm going to go with number 2 is the lie.
Okay. You know what? So interestingly enough, I thought the same thing. Surgeons were actually hired during the transatlantic slave trade to protect enslaved women, but not for the reasons why we would think, and not for the reasons why you and I are here. They were protecting them because fertility was major propaganda, was major profit during this time. And so they hired these surgeons to protect those enslaved women that were on these ships, because guess what? The better health they were in, the more they could produce, the more fertile they are, the more profit they make from these lives that are coming. So the sad thing about maternal health during that time is that that stigma has continued to follow throughout the years, the decades, and that is why we see so much dissension and a lot of these race-related disparities. And when we say race-related disparities, guess what? We're talking about, regardless of economic standing and education and all of that, we're talking simply because of the color of my skin or the color of my brother's skin or my sister's skin, we are being treated poorly. Other pieces that we have to consider when it comes to history is social determinants of health. And what I like to say are genes, our DNA versus our genes. I got on leggings so you can't see, but our genes. And how does that impact maternal health as well? And so when we think about social determinants of health, we know that there are things in our community that affect a lot of what our health experiences may be. We understand that, and we know that besides access to care, another major factor that makes the most dramatic impact is where we live, eat, sleep, and breathe on a daily basis. So as a pregnant woman, as a mother, right, if I'm expecting or if I've had a child and I don't have access to transportation to get me to spaces that I need to be in to make sure that I'm taking care of myself along this journey, then it's not just the access to care, it's the lack of transportation, right? They could say, oh, well, no, you can come as often as you want. But if I can't get there, that makes a major difference. When I talk about our genes versus our genes, and I'm going to hand it over to Joel, it's about knowing your family history, understanding what part that plays in it. For many people, genetics makes up about 90% of their challenges with obesity. When you are an obese person, genetics makes up about 90% of the time. It's because of your genes. I'm gonna hand it over to you, Joel.
Yo, I'm still shocked by some of that information. It makes me think so much about the culture and the culture of what we have been known to believe and what we're known to do. And I said earlier to you that I actually was raised to believe that a expecting mother is supposed to eat as much and can not possibly be overweight, because the bigger she is, the bigger the baby. So it is good to know what has carried throughout this DNA throughout years and years and years. All right, let's talk about on the paternal side. And this information I'm giving is to invoke compassion. It's not to give excuses. It's not to say, oh, some people should know better. It's to give you some type of compassion. And compassion is the kind of thing that brings out and say, let me help a little bit more. So 1938, 50% of our children, our expecting babies, were born at home, midwifery and things like that. Sorry, that was 1938. But 1958, just 20 years later, almost 98% were born in a hospital. And you're saying, what brought about this spike? A new drug came out called aspirin that reduced pain, and a lot of our women came to do that. Understanding that was, it didn't make fertility better, it didn't change anything, it just meant that they were able to get aspirin and a little bit more surroundings. By 1960 to 1970, the child workers' birth movement. So your midwives, your doulas, your people, your child, they were the ones that argued to try to get males, mostly husbands, actually into the hospital. Fathers were not allowed into labor and into delivery until around 1970. And in 1970, we're talking about married fathers. We're not talking about single. We're talking about married, because a lot of our churches were still Catholic. And even in these information I'm giving you, understand that the civil rights movement was still going on. So these are general numbers. There are still a lot of African Americans specifically that were not allowed in certain hospitals at all. So by 1980, married men were finally allowed into some hospitals, not all, to see actual labor and delivery. Now, the reason I'm bringing this up, because this was like around 42 years ago. So only 42 years ago, most males that you have today, or the males that you were brought up with someone who was totally disconnected from the entire labor and delivery process. So if you ask me about labor and delivery, I'm going to tell you that I saw a miracle happen over and over and over again. So if you were denied that miracle, if you were denied that, you have what we call a disconnect. So a lot of our dads that you see are kind of laid back with this whole thing, that kind of have a it's going to be all right attitude and don't have a lot of information. It's because we started our entire country off by saying expecting mothers don't need the aid of expecting dads. So let me just give you a little bit more history. The reason why fathers and married men and partners are allowed into labor and delivery now is because something crazy and scientific and research happened, which they didn't really have to tell me and you. They found out that expecting mothers healed faster when they were surrounded by loved ones. Surprise. So now that helped them push the fact that males are allowed, fathers and are now allowed into labor and delivery to see this act. So there's a strong disconnect from years and from the history that we now in the last 40 years, just the last 42 years, have to try to fix.
Wow. You blew my hat off with a lot of those details. And the thing that came to mind, yes, we do know about and have seen that expected mothers heal a lot faster when family are around. And I know we're going to get into this, but that's why having a care team, not just inclusive of medical staff, so to speak, or practitioners, is so important. But one thing you said, Joel, that I'm going to hit on before as we move on, is about aspirin coming into play. And so what that says to me, and I want to highlight one of the messages that came up in the chat from Cheltenham Area Branch NAACP, is they remember their mother saying that their father wasn't allowed in the room, right? And so the importance of fathers being included in this conversation is, again, why Joel and I, across all channels and every platform, want to be a united front. But that aspirin piece, just going back to that really quick, hit home, because what it also meant too was that while it didn't change the dynamic of pregnancy, labor, and delivery as a process or an experience, it meant that women do feel pain. And so if women feel pain, and whether you're black, yellow, green, our makeup is the same, then black women feel pain we actually feel pain. And that's a great segue into perinatal wellness. So oftentimes when we go through this journey, our experiences are minimized as Black women. It's said that, oh, you know, they're fine, we're treated differently, like we don't experience pain. And that affects our mental health. When it comes to mental health during this period, we don't think about or talk a lot about depression and anxiety, but it 100% shifts. I used to tell people when they're like, oh, when I said I went through postpartum depression, I'm like, actually, I went through perinatal and postpartum depression and anxiety. It was huge. It was major. Now, yes, there were other factors in my life that play a part, but when we think about even the ACEs, which is the Adverse Childhood Experiences ranking, guess what? That affects us too. When we have adverse experiences as expected persons, it influences our mental health dramatically. I think another piece that I just wanted to touch on with the mental health side of it are triggers. And so you heard us just talk about, those who are tuning in, you heard us just talk about the history, right? And how fathers weren't allowed and how slavery impacted and social determinants of health. And so those things are still triggers for us to this day. Minimizing our experiences, treating Black women as though we're just kind of cattle being shuffled along is major. A story I remember my mentor telling me, Patricia, about her mother was that she remembered when her mom had her oldest sister, her mom bragged about not making a sound when she delivered her baby. Because during this time in the 40s, they would line Black women up when they finally were able to come to the hospital. They would line them up in a hallway to deliver like in a row, again, like a cattle call. And so if a Black woman made a sound, they were chastised by the medical staff, a trigger that takes you way back to that space of slavery. And so her mother prided herself with, I delivered that baby and did not make a sound. And that is why, as time has gone on, our psyche and our mental health has been challenged by that, because we start to believe those things too. I know you have some pieces around the mental health component from the father's side.
No, it is really hard to try to understand and kind of copulate what you are going through when you don't have that type of knowledge. It is very hard to understand because culture tells you that you have to be strong as a father, and then the mother is supposed to be strong. And also, it's not totally my area, but I really dislike the classification in the classes between our mothers and our motherhood. I remember when my first son was born, his mother, we found out she had to have a cesarean. And she really took it hard, and she cried. And I thought it was because of the fact of the surgery. But for her, it was having a natural birth was the way it was supposed to. Cesarean was almost a cheat or a failure. Even though we had a successful child, even though we had a healthy child, even though our child came out there's almost this classification between, well, my child was born this way, but you couldn't, and those are some of those cultural things we really have to get rid of. And somebody saying that's still happening.
Yes.
Those mental health things to get rid of. So the focus has to be on the health of the child and the health of our relationship. How are we doing, and how are we good?
Absolutely.
I love talking about nesting and men, but go ahead.
No, my piece is, honestly, the nesting experience for moms. You may be familiar with it, but if not, it looks very similar to getting ready for like Christmas or another holiday in a short period of time. So you spend 11 months knowing that Christmas is coming, but for some strange reason, December 1st or right after Thanksgiving, we'll say, it is like this mad dash to gather and get ready for this major holiday, so to speak. And nesting for me, and for many of the moms that I've supported, has looked the same. It's like all of a sudden you're going along and then boop, I feel like I really need to get ready for this baby. So you start ironing the clothes and hanging up the clothes and folding the clothes and washing the clothes and that beautiful dress stuff that you may have got. And you don't want no Cocoa Life and somebody got you a box. And so now you're unpacking all of that and you're super excited. And nesting can be overwhelming for mom, but also very soothing for you too. But I know it looks differently for dads. Joel, what does nesting look like for y'all?
The best way, in the shortest way, I could say it's homework versus housework.
Ooh.
It is homework versus housework. So housework, my expecting mothers go into this housework mode, just exactly as you said. Like the house has to be this way, and they can go into an OCD and come right out of it afterwards. But my dads go into homework, where I almost wish you can play that song to the left, because my moms are thinking to the right, the inside of this home, and my dads go straight to the left and think the outside of the home. Instead of building a crib, I may be fixing the steps. I may be painting outside. I may be working more than usual. And sometimes if I work more than usual, it makes you feel that I'm kind of be distant. But the reality is I'm so worried about the surrounding house. I'm so worried about trying to get new appliances. I'm so worried now. I don't even like this neighborhood no more. I want us to leave all of a sudden, because it was cool when my friends hung on the corner, but now I don't like those people there for my baby. The concrete blocks I want to get fixed. This entire thing that surrounds you and surrounds the new child, those are the things I'm focused on. So somehow, some way, nesting wise, we have to bring mom in 2 steps to understand dad, and dad in 2 steps to understand mom. That there's some things that he has to do inside that, and there's some understanding. Because if you want to work more, that's fine, but make sure that you YouTube and Facebook me live and ask me how I'm doing throughout the day. We have to find that balance, especially when we're going through this nesting period.
That always gets me every time, I swear. Every time you talk about nesting. And I think it's because in my mind, I'm like, ooh, I do remember that. When we said, I was like, ooh, I do remember being real pissed. And like, oh, that's why we moved so quickly when I was 7 months pregnant. Nevertheless, I move on. I digress. These last 3 bullets for me: nutrition, creating a care team, communication. You know, I know it all goes together, but just very high level from the mom side. I didn't think about nutrition the same way. But with more information, and especially by my second child, it was definitely a lot better, but I had gone through so much. I had went through losing my mom, and my husband now losing his father at the time. A lot of loss surrounded me, and I used food as my coping mechanism. And not just that I overate, I also did not eat. And so all while I'm expecting, but nutrition is so valuable. And what we have to think about is how we fuel our bodies. So instead of talking about what we eat and how much I'm going to eat, it really is about how I fuel my body. And so as I'm creating my care team now, when I'm sitting down and having this conversation with moms, it's like, on your care team, what sort of, and you don't have to have a nutritionist or a dietitian per se, but where are your resources for that? That's great to have a midwife, definitely, or your midwife or your OBGYN. Definitely want to have your doula or your doulo. And you need to make sure you have nutrition centered on that. That you have what sort of resources am I going to need to get back and forth? Like we talked about transportation. Thinking about these things sometimes just helps to alleviate a lot of stress. And then communicating with your partner about those same resources and talking those out. I know from the mom side was a challenge for me at first, but I can't tell you how much pressure it took off just to take a minute to sit down and think about, how am I going to eat? Not just when I have this baby, right? So they told me I can't have the mercury, so I'm trying to stay away from the shellfish and the seafood and things. I can't have the soft cheese, but preparing mentally for what that looks like during pregnancy and postpartum is key. So what about you?
Let me just say, in all 3, I spoke earlier about this. For all of my fathers or fathers to be that are listening, or for all the people that work with them, you have to let them know somebody's life is at stake. This is not something you can take casual. This is not something that's just okay. This is not something that you can wing. somebody's life is at stake. And if you get into Black maternal health, you'll find out it may possibly be two people's lives at stake. And nutrition plays a heavy role. Number one, for my mothers and my mothers to be, my DNA is now linked to something inside of you. If I am terribly allergic to bananas, it is most likely that they will now make you sick. And hopefully you understand that from a nutrition point of view. The other part is that we have to learn, and it's really important specifically for males to get and to know and understand what this nutrition and how it benefits our children. It all benefits the child in the end, and we have to be able to balance. Yes, you have to give your expecting mother French fries from Burger King, because that's what she wants and that's what she's going to get. But the next time you can also offer apple slices. You have to be able to think about the benefit to her and the benefit to your child. And that care team, for us specifically men, it's just an ego and pride thing. We really have to get over this whole I got this and I can take care of this and I can do such and such, and this whole superman, superwoman mentality. These infants don't care. They will keep you up, they will keep you down, they will keep you here, they will take you to the right, they will take you to the left. But this care team in the African American community, we call it a food train also. There are people around you that have been through it that you need to speak to. There are people around you that are offering food that you need to take. There are people around you that are offering rides, and I don't care if it's a Grubhub gift card. This is the perfect time for you to be able to balance. I'd rather you be out of the kitchen, male or female, or woman or mother or father, and be sitting beside each other, holding each other during this 9 months. These are little things that you can take away. Communication now is totally changed. You have to communicate your feelings, you have to communicate your wants, you have to communicate what's going on with you, because we don't know what we don't know. Most care workers, most infants and WIC and people that surround our mothers, the best they can do is maybe 20 or 30 hours with appointments and OBGYN, and mom has to go to this place and she has to go to that place, but they still only care for her about 20 to maybe 30 hours a week. There are 168 hours in the week. So who is providing for that extra 138? Who's around her? Who knows this and who knows nutrition? You have to teach these dads nutrition. You have to teach them what nesting looks like. You have to teach them how to better communicate. We have to do much better.
You hit the nail so many times on the head with that. And I saw the question come up about a care team. So a care team, think in terms of like your resource list, your network as an expected mom going into postpartum. And it doesn't mean the care team goes away, and we'll get into that as we get to our fifth point. But it does mean that you are intentional about that. And a lot of it hits on what Joel just said, which is communication. Sometimes even when you're not planning and it's an unplanned pregnancy, and I'm using air quotes because we kind of all know how this thing works now, but I'm gonna leave it at that. You want to try to be as prepared as possible. And that can sometimes come with having resources and saying yes to those resources as well. So that's kind of what it means to kind of have a care team. And that's the perinatal side and postpartum. Go ahead, Joe.
And just jumping real quick, you're also allowed to have boundaries.
Yeah.
I've been dealing with couples during COVID, and it's okay to have a care team that meets you on your porch. It's okay to have a care team that you can virtually talk to. And grandma is not allowed to come over your house and go back to the casino and then come back over. Either she's going to have to stay or she's going to have to leave. It's okay for you as a new mom and new dad to have certain boundaries and tell people you can come to the baby and it's your house, vaccinated, or you can see the baby virtually unvaccinated and not keeping the child away. But all of this, it's okay, even mental health wise, it's very okay to set your own boundaries.
Oh, 1,000%. Let me tell you, this is where your Coco dads, the paternal piece and making sure dad is around is solid, because where you don't want to have these conversations, or if you struggle with saying no, trust me, dad's gonna step in and be like, nope, she said wash your hands before you come, she said put a mask on, we want this, we want that. We'll be speaking French all over the place. They'll be speaking French all over the place, we, because now, again, like Joel said, he's responsible, and that has just clicked. So when we know better and we have those boundaries and we can use those resources, but like Joel said, responsibly. Use resources responsibly.
Yeah, I want my mama know. I'm the only one that can tell my mama no. You know, you
right.
can't do it, right?
But there you go. So as we move into our third element, so far we've hit on history, we've hit on perinatal wellness, and now we're talking about infertility. And so when we talk infertility, there's a few things that we want to recognize. One, we know that April is Infertility Awareness Month, and actually this week, right now that we're in, is Infertility Awareness Week. We know there are many, many families that infertility looks differently, right? And so even the couple you see in here, when we speak about compassion on the side of Coco Life, we're not just talking about the loss of a child or significant loved one. We also highlight the loss of hope in that experience of getting pregnant, of having a child. Because we know that negative pregnancy test is crushing. And so awareness about it is just honestly making sure that we keep our language constructive. And so this can kind of lean also into that community connection piece, like even Joel brought up. We have to dispel this myth, if you will, and this conversation around the curse. I was reading an article the other day and it talked about the curse of infertility. And oftentimes what has happened when we use that language, the curse, is it means to most people when they internalize, especially women, is that there's something wrong with me. I am cursed. I have this problem. I am not good. The example like Joel gave, that's very real. Someone has a cesarean and it's like they didn't give birth. It's like, I am this problem. I am not a whole woman if I can't. So number one, I'm going to say having children biologically specifically does not change your dynamic of a woman. You're a woman, period. And that is what you identify with and how you were born, and that is what your anatomy is made of. That's what you are. If you choose to have children, and this becomes your experience for you and dad, that's going to shift the way your life moves. And life around and after loss is very different. There's an amazing woman, Shauna. She has an organization, and as a doula and mental health professional, she specifically works with families who have gotten pregnant after a loss, because there's something different that has changed about you mentally, physically, and in your relationship once you've experienced that loss. And a big part of that is making sure that you keep your mental health at the forefront, not pushing it back or acting as though it doesn't exist. Memories and remembering, having that conversation with each other. So that goes right into communication about what does that look like. I've run into many women who, and that's fine if that is your choice, but who never got a chance to name their babies, and then families, mothers and fathers who chose not to because they thought they couldn't. So just affirming, being affirmed, and that if that was your experience at a certain point in time in pregnancy, especially, or if you experienced the loss at infant loss for stillbirth, that is still your child. That is still, and be affirmed in knowing that the way you choose to remember and honor that angel baby is between you and your husband, you and dad, mom and dad, to have that conversation. The last piece I'll say as it relates to just the community connection and communication element is Coco community, communities in general. There are a few things that we do as a community, and we're talking about intention versus impact here, right? And so there's a saying that the road to hell is paved with good intentions. But we know you mean well when you say things like, oh, you see a new couple, they just got married. Oh, when are you all having some kids? And how long is it going to be till you have the next one? And why y'all keep waiting so long for this? And oh, you can have another one. Let's stop. Let's just stop there. And remember that the connection and the value you're supposed to bring is compassion and creating space for mom and dad.
I think the majesty of our African American community is how strong we are, we have grit. We will get through it. We are positive people. We are hopeful people, prayerful people. We somehow find a way to get through it. That's the Majesty. The myth is that we're never sad. We never have loss. We don't, you don't talk or you never find any weakness in anything. When it comes to fertility, everyone's running around with the same exact question. Am I the problem? Was it me? Is it my fault? What did I do? So each individual involved is running around with blame. What we have to do now is totally flip it from back in our forefathers and foremothers and say, it is okay to talk about a miscarriage openly and out loud. It is okay to say, I hate the fact that this happened. It is okay to be sorry for it, and it is okay to have moments about it. It is absolutely okay to have these conversations. It is okay to say, I feel responsible. It is okay to throw all of this out. And it's almost like the exhale in all this infertility is what really kind of doesn't solve it, but brings about a little bit more peace and balance. But it is now okay to know these things happen. It is okay to talk to each other about how we're going to address it with our family. What are our choices next? And to not hide these emotions, but actually ask each other, how do you feel right now? What is going on with you right now? And then what does grief and loss look like? I mean, you may be a new couple, but if you haven't experienced grief and loss, you are dating a brand new person. Some people are loud, some people are quiet, some people shelter. So it is totally okay to say to someone, now I've had one too, how can I help? If you want to sit and talk, if you want to journal it and write it down, but it has to come out. It cannot stay in anymore. I mean, I can go into that all day, but it's 6:43, so I'm gonna let's keep it going.
I'm going to keep it on you as we transition into our fourth element here of postpartum. So much of it we have absolutely had some conversation on, but please take the lead about postpartum.
I absolutely love being a postpartum doula. I just want to quickly get into the expectations. There's myths and majesty and expectations, and one of the myths is that it's going to be all right. The other, which is an illness in our community, is this illness called I got this. I find it a very horrible illness. I find it horrible. Yo, this ain't nothing but a little infant. This baby ain't going. The expectations have to be realistic, and it is very much a time for a woman and a man to ask for help. It is because someone's life is at stake. And I say woman like that and that because that's the strong part, and you need to also humble yourself and say, back to that care team, I need help, and not to have an expectation that it's going to be the smoothest thing ever. Mental health, we can't get deep enough into that. Postpartum wise, it's a strong disruption. Your care team, specifically with a lot of people, and I'm finding some of it in my moms, this care team is the people around you that have been through your situation before. And I don't mean you're just sympathetically, but empathetically as well. If you have had a baby, carried to term or not carried to term, there's a care team, which is a lot of family and friends, even in friends you met at work, that are willing and waiting around for a phone call to say, how can I help? Can I send you food? Can I do this? And you're going to have to say yes. As a new mom, you cannot have the ego and pride to say, I can take care of this all, and I can take care of him. And same thing for new. The care team has to come in because villages raise children, not individuals. Bridging the work-life balance gap, you have to communicate through this. You have to talk about this. You have to say, it's a little bit easier now with technology to try to bridge some of these things because you can use your entire lunch break to sing to a baby to put it to sleep. You have to be able to understand which goals you have for the entire family and then work those different goals on those different days. And you're also allowed to take a Queen's Day. Queen's Day is don't bother me. I'll be in the tub for 16 hours watching Bridgerton. Don't get on my nerves. I don't want to see nobody. I'm not nobody's wife, and I'm not nobody's mother. It's just all about me. And you're allowed to take a King's Day, which is Sunday. You can just watch football, put a baby on your chest, and just both of y'all fall asleep. You're allowed to take these sort of timeouts, and that goes back to mental health as well. Communication during this time, you get rid of the fact that you know her. Get rid of the fact that you know him and you've been dating him, because he is now turned into what we call a father. She has now turned into what we call a mother, and you have never met that person before until today, until that time when you witnessed that delivery. Those are two different people. A mother loves, your girlfriend loves flowers and steamed crabs. The mother wants you to put that damn playpen together that I've been asking you about for the last week. The flower, and don't bring me no flowers until that's done. But communication now is talking through emotions. I may not understand I probably never understand what an expecting mother is going through. An expecting mother will never ever understand what an expecting dad is going through. But the communication we both know is emotions. I'm afraid right now. I'm scared right now. I'm not sure how this is going to be. I don't understand what's going on. This is making me feel uncomfortable. Those emotions make other people react. We know exactly. And those emotions can be carried right into the hospital or to the midwife and say, this is what I need. I need comfort. And what will comfort you? This comforts me. Okay. I had a couple that I told the guy to take off his t-shirt that he'd been wearing for 2 days and put it over her pillow so that she can smell his funk. His funk makes her relax. And guess what? Now Moms feels better. But you cannot talk from a place of, well, I know him and I know her. You two have never met each other before, because once this baby hits home, he has changed and Mom has totally become Mom, and she has changed. She's not your girlfriend or your fiance. She's now a mother. And those two are two different people. Talk from emotions.
I mean, I could not have perfectly put. The only thing I'll add to that and highlight as we move on to our fifth element is around this normalizing support, as we've said over and over, and then the scope of a doula. And so the scope of a doula is to support, be a companion, to organize, to prepare, to educate, whether it's perinatal or postpartum, and you have many full spectrum doulas. So that's why allow us to come and be a part of this experience, because we can bring what is going to be cloudy for you during these times. And with that balance, whether you're an entrepreneur, stay at home, take a paternity leave, maternity leave, scheduling, all of that, because it is at your disposal. And with our fifth element that we just want to highlight, bump and beyond. So that's one of the things that we say at Coca Life too, is that we support moms bump and beyond. And so when Joel and I were talking through what this looks like, is the one thing we want to emphasize is, one, yes, we are looking to expand the postpartum period from just 6 weeks or 6 months to a whole year. And that has been done. Changes have been made, even in Pennsylvania, effective April 1st, along those lines. But guess what? Even beyond that, we need to make sure that the support is there. Joel, I know you highlighted a lot of it, but any pieces that you just want to lift up about this bump beyond part?
Well, cultivating community to me, and of course, ongoing, and I'm so glad you got communication in every slide. Like, we can't talk about that enough. But that bump and beyond is magnificent. But cultivating community means changing narratives also. Changing narratives means and I tell my dad as a doula, I need you to already take these weeks off. I need you to not work. Changing the narrative means that your new expecting mother does not care that she has to only have tuna fish and peanut butter because there's no money. She does not care about that. What she cares about is what time you're getting home and her safety and the child's safety. If you think that bringing more money in is the fatherly thing to do, you're wrong. The fatherly thing to do is somebody's got to do this laundry, because I don't know why, Alexia, but adult clothes don't seem to take up as much room as baby clothes. Baby clothes is smaller, but baby clothes is like 3 loads. Whereas, all right, I'm not going to get into that. And we're talking about that from a doula perspective, bump and beyond. What do meals look like? What does eating look like? How is she getting fed? Who's washing out the bottles? All of these things can happen, and it's a lot of work that goes in. Growing your family, knowing that there is, again, housework and homework. I know a lot of dads cut the grass, but if you cut the grass every 2 weeks, it's pretty much the same level. What we have done on the other side, my mothers may do laundry, but the laundry has grown 2 and 3-fold. So we have to find a balance. Her duties have gone up, and yours have kind of stayed the same. So you have to do housework and you have to do homework. And then ongoing parent education. Somebody's life is at stake. There's a baby here. Please ask questions. Please ask the dumbest questions you can think of, because going into this and coming out of this is something that no one else is going to go into just like you. So you have to ask as many people as possible and take it seriously.
Take it seriously. Absolutely. And so, in closing, there's a lot that has come with the experiences. We're evolving all the time. But the biggest piece that we want to drive home, equality and the necessary relationship between Black maternal health and Black maternal. So that, Joel.
Black paternal health, it equates, or it equalizes Black maternal health. If you understand the statistics specifically around our Black maternal health, the statistics are hard to swallow. That's the best way I could say. We are higher amongst almost every single issue, including birth defects, preterm, SIDS, injuries, and incidents. Other side, I put possible solutions. It's the awareness of family history. And when I say family history, it's not just the maternal side, but we have to find out what the paternal family history is, because we have to find out what's treatable, what's not. Who has obesity, who has lupus in their family, who has diabetes in their family. We have to talk about the awareness of birth weights. Many, specifically on the paternal side, have no idea how these birth weights affect outcomes of children. All of these other current issues and problems we're trying to solve can be, some of them find solutions. Maternal pregnancy complications. Most men have no idea what's going on. We're laying beside someone and don't realize that almost every time she gets out of bed, there may be a small pool of blood. And for us, that's normal. But when you talk to a postpartum doula or a birth doula, it's not. So maternal education awareness, teaching paternal, what maternal education awareness is, what are the illnesses, what are the ills, what is her family like, what is she eating, what does she need to be eating, and really getting into this 9 months as a study, as a certification, as a college degree. And then on the other side, understanding how paternal education awareness supports. When I eat, she eats. When she eats, I eat. And what I eat, she eats. And we balance each other and we support each other. And our job is to present encouragement and nutritional support. Paternal health does not push aside maternal. It is the 138 hours that we're trying to get to make sure that maternal health has everything they need, that they have mental support. Stressors is one of the number one things, specifically around Black maternal health, that hurts the outcomes of our children. So we don't argue for 9 months. We talk things through for 9 months, and moms usually right for 9 months. Increase a healthier lifestyle. If you know better, you do better. So I have people jumping in from people are talking about, let's go for YMCA, but every now and then when you come home from work, you have to walk around the block with mom if you know better. And then of course, wellness and care. Lexi, I can't get into enough about that. Wellness and care, specifically womb, specifically mom, specifically household, making sure she gets to appointments, making sure appointments are important to me too. If you don't want to go, I'll go. I'll talk to the gynecologist, because I'm not dealing with my body changing every 5 to 20 seconds So sometimes I'm the best person to take notes, and I know body weight. If your husband can learn every member on a football team, I think he can track body weight, and if a baby has a brown stool or a yellow stool. I think so. Give him some credit.
He can handle it.
I think I know guys that be like, oh, I know his statistics in high school. I'm like, really? I've never known this guy before. So I love the blending of it all.
I think this has been such an amazing opportunity. And before you all here today, we want to thank you so much for this time. One of the things that we've been encouraging to do, and we've done it in a few different platforms, is, and we know Q&A looks a little differently, so you've been dropping them in the chat, you can continue to do so. But just thinking about 2 phrases, or 3 phrases, excuse me, I was, I am, I want. And so in processing all this information you just got, thinking to yourself, I was feeling or thinking this, I am feeling or thinking this, and I want to feel or think in this particular way. And so as you process all of this information, just keeping those things in mind. The last pieces that I just wanted to lift up was a couple of events that are we wanted to highlight. One is International Cocoa Mom Day. It is May 20th, okay? It is International Cocoa Mom Day. Go Google it.
Get that music.
I know, right? Like, listen, hold on, let me pull my Mary back up. International Cocoa Day is a real thing. Go Google it, check it out. You can see, and you can go to cocolife.black/events to register in how you want to celebrate International Cocoa Mom Day. And Joel, I know you got a major event coming up. Come on, what's going on?
We have a couple of major events. We have a Daddy and Daughter Dance coming up. It is in Philadelphia. You can hit us up at www.daddyuniv.com. But just reach out to us for anything. Our Doulas for Dads has an event and a conference coming up. So please, we want to be a resource and a tool for you. Hey, Nicole.
Hello. Thank you guys for that wonderful and powerful conversation. To all the attendees out there, if you want to reach out to Alexia or to Joel, please be sure to check over in the speaker section. You can find their contact information as well as their bios. Thank you so much, Alexia. That was a fantastic presentation. I'm sure I know more than I ever knew about male doulos. Again, did not know that was a thing. So feeling very, very enlightened. For those who may have missed a portion of it, this has been recorded and we're going to upload it so that it can be viewed by other attendees for the remainder of the conference. We'll probably be able to do that within the next 48 hours. But if you do miss it during the conference, it will be uploaded to our new YouTube channel, which is being launched next week. Disrupt and build up, because that is the theme of this year's conference. Again, I want to thank you, Lexi. Thank you so much, Joel, for your time and your expertise. And Joel, I just wanted to show you this picture right here because yes, we were at one of your daddy-daughter dances a few years ago. So thank you for that experience. All right. Thank you guys so much. And to the attendees that are out there, don't leave yet because we are starting our next forum in now. So be sure to pop on over to our forum with Angela Lawful-Sanders, who will be moderating a conversation, questions that we've been too embarrassed to ask. A candid conversation about contraception, libido, and overall sexual wellness and health. So we hope that you are able to join us over there, and I hope to see you soon. All right, bye.
Thank you.
All right.
Thank you.